Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Power Man Podcast. My name's Rory Paquette. I know you know that. But I just like to remind myself how grateful I am to be sitting here in this chair, folks. If it's not for everything that you folks are out there doing, the liking, the sharing, the subscribing, the DMs, man, the DMs. Whew, you guys are just awesome with those DMs. I love it. And I will respond to every one of them. I promise. I do it myself. I don't farm it out. So, folks, without you, I don't get to sit here and do this. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And you guys know that you're the reason that we're all sitting here doing this today. If you're a friend of the program, and I know you are, then you know what time it is. It's time to pay some bills and take a sip of our preferred beverage. Oh man, better every time. You guys all know what we're drinking. That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Look them up and check them out. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful. Just like my wife. They brew a mean cup of Joe. It's a fantastic cup of coffee. They do all the right things for all the right reasons, and they support veterans, which is one of the biggest reasons why we support them here at the Power Man. If you're a veteran, I want to thank you and your family out there for everything you've done, because if you didn't go do what you did at some point in time, and as well as the other veterans that are out there, I would not be able to say a thing. And I know that's true because they've tried to stop me. And because of people like you, I'm still sitting here talking. So thank you very much to all of you. I love you. And I'm so happy you found a home here at Power Man Podcast. And Freedom Hill Coffee feels the same way. At Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram, look them up and check them out and tell them that Power of Man sent you. Let me get one more sip of this fine nectar of the gods before I bring on this young buck across the table from me. All right, here we go. This gentleman is a retired pastor with 25 years in pastoral ministry. He is a father to three kids, which frankly I think is the most important part of this entire bio. He does have an incredible leadership background, which we're going to get into today in a big way. And he's the author of the upcoming book, Father Friend: How Intentional Dads Lean In, Lead Well, and Love Big. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Mike Ayers. Doc, how you doing today?
Hey, thank you, Rory. I just got to tell you, it's been a while since somebody's called me a young buck.
We haven't been on with an old grizzly guy like me in a while
Well, I
then.
tell people I'm not that old. I just got a lot of mileage on me.
There you go. I love that. All right, Dr. Ayers, do me a favor. Tell everybody a little bit about yourself,
Yeah.
your background, and it's kind of like what led you to being here today.
Well, as you mentioned, most importantly, I'm an author, I'm an educator, speaker, but my favorite title has always been dad. I grew up in a rather chaotic alcoholic family. Um, so I didn't really have a model for fathering growing up. And I don't say that to disrespect my father. We had a lot of healing that took place over the years before he passed away, but I was kind of winging it. And so I was fortunate enough to have a man enter my life who shared the Lord with me and then mentored me. And I was able to watch him love and lead his children. And then I became a father at the age of 30 and held that firstborn. And I think every dad out there knows what it feels like to hold that firstborn child and feel the wonder, the weight, the fear, maybe. Um, and just pledge to yourself that you're going to give your very best to this kid. And that's what happened with me. So fatherhood has shaped me more than really anything else in my life. It's been a beautiful, chaotic, deeply rewarding adventure. And again, I think most dads feel that way also. So I do have three children. I have four grandchildren, and I've run the long race of fatherhood. We've been through every kind of imaginable adventure. I'll put it that way. Adventure that any dad has with their kids. And most recently, it's been weddings and first jobs and grandkids, first childs. So children that my kids have had. So it's been a wonderful thing to see. And I'm certainly not a perfect dad, but I've learned a lot over those years. So I think more than anything else, that fatherhood has defined me. You mentioned my leadership background. I do have a leadership background, and I have a PhD in organizational leadership, and I've been teaching in higher education in the college classroom for more than 20 years. Teach business administration, leadership management, and that whole process of education and then teaching young people was incredibly helpful for me to understand how adolescents in particular grow and develop. My PhD research was in the field of leadership's relationship to a psychological concept called ego identity. that was coined by Eric Erickson, the famous psychologist. And so the correlation between identity and leadership behavior was very interesting to me. And so that really, really helped a lot. And then finally, I would say the third thing that's a part of my background is that I'm a retired pastor, and I've sat with families having almost any kind of imaginable heartache and challenge that they've experienced with their kids. Talked to a lot of dads. Talked to parents who are heartbroken by rebellious teenagers. I've talked to young parents who are dealing with strong-willed toddlers and and everything in between. So again, I bring all this to the ministry, the resource that I have, as well as the book. I'm so happy to share it with dads. I'm not a perfect dad. I've never claimed to be a perfect dad, but I've learned some things along the way, and I hope to share those with other men to encourage them.
That's fantastic. I tell you what, you unpacked a lot there, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you're a grandfather too. Congratulations. My
Thank
gosh.
you. Yeah.
That's great. Did you say four grandkids?
Four grandkids. And just last week, my baby girl, the youngest of the family, only girl, had her first child. So we're
Wow.
rejoicing with that as well.
That's fantastic. I
It's
mean,
fun.
what a life full of blessings. I mean,
Yes.
it's amazing. And
Yes.
congratulations on all of it.
Thank
So
you.
it sounds like you did a pretty decent job in the dad chair right there, brother.
Well, I tell people, I say, it's God's grace and a good mother, made more of the difference. There's some things
There you
I did
go.
right, but yeah, I'm thankful to be where I am and
Nice,
have the
nice.
kids I have.
Love that so much. Now, with your leadership background, just from you and I talking beforehand, it sounds like that is a very big thing, along with fatherhood, of course,
Mm-hmm.
that really kind of shaped how you built your theory and your plan, everything that went into the book. You've got a pretty detailed model that you follow.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us how the leadership background impacted the book, and then we'll get into the book itself.
Yeah, that's a great question. So yes, it is hugely important in understanding what I eventually arrived at as far as the model is concerned. If you look at leadership theory, one of the basic tenets is that leaders tend to lead as they're comfortable leading. But what is truly effective in leadership is understanding who you're leading, why you're leading them, and then leading them based upon not what you're comfortable giving and not what they're necessarily comfortable receiving, but what they need, and leading them based upon the individual needs of the person that you're leading and managing, understanding their competence level. So, do they need directive behavior? Do they need to be taught and equipped? Um, and understanding their confidence level. How motivated are they? And what do I need to do to maybe support them and encourage them? So those are kind of the two sides of the spectrum of leadership behavior. On one end is directive behavior of leaders toward followers, and the other end is supportive behavior toward leaders and followers. Well, you bring those two things together, and it's a powerful tool for understanding fatherhood. If fathers are anything, Rory, and you know this, they're leaders of their kids, right? And so dads need to figure out, hey, how can I have the most effective, the most powerful influence of my kids? What are the points of influence? And honestly, that's based upon each individual child. It's based upon where they are in their age of development. It's based upon their unique personality and what they need. So in the book, I talk about the four stages of development, and really it was out of my leadership background that this model formed to understand that kids need different things at different ages. I mean, that's just true psychologically. It's just a rule of life, and they are greatly impacted, obviously, by the most important caregivers in their lives. So I've come to understand, hey, fathers can do certain things at certain ages of development of their children's lives to find maximum impact and influence, and to eventually lead them to what I call being a father friend to them. That's the goal. By the age of 21, around there, that a dad would become a father friend. And when people hear that, Rory, I get two reactions. One says, well, can I really be a father and a friend to my child? And I say, absolutely yes, as long as you understand what that means. And then others will say, hey, I'm their father. I'm not their friend. What are you talking about?
Right.
And my response to that is, hey, listen, I'm not asking you to abandon your authority. I'm asking you to expand it. and to understand it in a deeper way. I'm not asking you to be their friend. I'm asking you to be their father friend. So, in the tension of those two words, and this is really what the book is all about, in the tension of those two words, in the contrast of those two words, you have both authority and affection. You have both strength and tenderness. You have both title as father, but also trust, relational trust. You have correction, but you also have connection. And so, just as in leadership, most dads are comfortable giving to their kids what they're comfortable giving, right? And most dads are really good on the correcting and the directing end of things, but maybe not so much on the tenderness and affection side. Other dads are playful. They're that buddy. They're that friend. Affection comes really easy for them, but maybe not leading and disciplining and correcting and understanding how their authority is important in their child's life. So, what I'm calling dads is don't give your kids what you're comfortable giving. Don't give your kids necessarily even what they want. Give them what they need, because that's what love is. Love is giving to another person what they need when they need it. And so it's a calling for dads to grow and to stretch and to give again what is most beneficial to their kid based upon their age and who they are.
Yeah. Yeah, I love where you're coming from on this. The heart posture behind all of this is really needed.
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys sort of get looked at as if they've given up. And I don't think that guys give up because they don't care. I think they give up
Mm.
because they don't know what to do next. I've heard you say something very similar and read it. And so, the fact that you're kind of coming from that, giving fathers a framework to sort of start working from, I think is incredibly helpful. So, I love that part of it. Um, walking that line between emotion and discipline, is always where we find ourselves as fathers, right? So,
Yeah, that's
um,
so true.
it's a very needed spot for you to be writing a book on. Um,
Yeah, I like
y-
to say it's a tension to manage, not a problem to solve. You kind
yeah,
of live in that tension as a father. Believe me, I've had moments when I've walked away from a discipline moment with my kids where I felt heavy and I didn't like it. Most dads don't like it. In
right.
fact, if you like it, maybe there's something you need to look at there. But and like you said, I find that almost every dad I know deeply loves their children. It's not a matter of if you love your kids, it's a question of will you love them intentionally? Because we drift, don't we? We get busy, things get complex, life gets difficult. And if we don't have an underlying purpose to what we're doing with our children that transcends, you know, the minutes that we're trying to survive, I like to challenge dads. I say, listen, it's not just about surviving the minutes. It's really mostly about shaping the years. And so you've got to have a long-term perspective in what you're doing as a dad, because purpose like that provides energy, it provides focus, it provides accountability. And in the end, your goal is that they reach young adulthood and you've achieved something in that quickly, in that short do.
I lost you there for a second. Are we back?
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right.
I
Sorry
lost
about
you
that.
too.
It
No,
looked like it froze for a minute. All right. Hey, we have these issues on podcasts, folks. That's what happens. So, all right. We're just going to keep on rocking and rolling here. All right. Doctor, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
All right. I think we're moving forward. If you don't mind repeating that, just
uh,
that last part there, maybe the last 20, 30 seconds.
no, I was just saying that what's really important for dads is because of their love for their kids, they need a purpose that transcends the daily challenges that they face with their children and with life in general. And if they don't have that, they drift. We all drift. Love leaks, over time. So what we have to do is we have endurance and that purpose that transcends the challenges that we face adulthood, we will have achieved something with them and not just kind of drift.
All right, and we're back. Sorry about that, everybody. I'll tell you what, Dr. Ayers, if you don't mind, there's four developmental stages that you have alluded to and that we've talked about here in the book as part of your program. I would love to hear what those stages are, if you don't mind telling us. I don't want you to, reveal the secret sauce or anything. It's in a book.
No, no, not at
Anything you could
all.
share with these guys would help a lot.
Yeah, of course, there's a lot more detail in the book and
Right.
details about how to live out these four stages. But going back to our discussion about leading our kids differently at different stages, based upon what they need, where they are, their unique personality, I have developed, and again from my leadership background, a four-stage model. And by the way, Rory, I see a lot of books when I go to Barnes and Noble or bookstore. I see books on parenting. I see very few on fatherhood, and any that I see tend to be kind of parenting hacks. So I haven't found a book that outlines a model quite like this. So I'm proud of it. I'm hoping it's going to be helpful to dads. So the model starts out with what I call quadrant one, Q1, which is the leader phase. The father is to play the role of the leader, and that is about establishing leadership of his home. Now, is that the only role that he plays? No. In each one of these phases, I outline the role that is most important and should be emphasized during that phase. In other words, you can do a lot of other things in those phases, but don't neglect this role because it's really most important for your children. So Q1 is the leader phase. And so I call the father the strong protector. And that's when a father is not just defaulting to mom, because kids tend to, from ages 0 to 6, that's the time frame for this phase, they tend to gravitate more toward their mother, who is really the primary caregiver, but dads need to not default. In fact, this is a very important time for dads to engage and to establish leadership of their home. So what I'm talking about there is giving direction, protecting from harm, becoming trusted as the presence in their life, answering for your children questions like, who can I trust? Dads are building a huge amount of trust. You know this to be true. These pathways are being set at this early age for kids, and they're forming worldviews about who dad is and who mom is and what the home is. And these things are somewhat subconscious at this age, but nonetheless, father's role is very important. Who can I trust? Who's in charge? Dads need to make sure that their children know that there is someone strong enough and tender enough to lead them and that they're not on their own. Children will challenge that, of course. Those are the years where it can be very difficult, but dads need to step up and give direction, give correction, give the right kind of loving discipline at that age between birth through 6. Q2 is the role of the coach, and I call the dad at that age the confidence builder. The 7 to 12 age range is the strike zone for most dads. While kids tend to gravitate toward their mothers, birth through 6, that 7 to 12 window, and I bet every dad out there can identify with this. It's the strike zone. I mean, it's the time when our kids look at us, they think we're superheroes, they respect us, they want to be taught by us, they want to hang with us. So psychologists tell us that kids with engaged fathers will gravitate toward their dads in that 7 to 12 window. And that's really an important time for a father. It's according to developmental psychologists, it's the most influential time a dad has with their kids. It's a short window. I wish I would have realized the power of my influence in those years, more realized the power of my influence in those years and how quickly it passes by. But dad needs to go full in. They become the coach to their kids, the confidence builder. So the goal of that phase is all about them building competence and confidence in their kids as they begin to stretch out and discover who they are and what they're good at, and providing training and instruction and opportunities for their kids. And that's the Q2 phase. Q3 is now adolescence, 13 through 20. um, that's when dads become the steady anchor. Q3 is the mentor stage. The roller coaster of adolescence has begun. Things really change. Um, that man whose daughter used to love to hold his hand now feels distance from her. That boy who was so teachable and coachable now wants to do things on his own. And that's not necessarily rebellion. It's just fact. It's a natural part of growing up. That emotional distancing occurs with all kids. So dads have to learn the art of influence. They're moving from being trusted in the early years now to trusting their kids. So I talk a lot about empowering their teenagers, giving them real responsibility to prepare them for young adulthood. And it's also about being that emotional center of gravity for your kids who are going through a crazy time. Everything is going on. And you know, the challenges of teenagers in today's world with screens and pressures of school and all the confusion that's taking place in our culture about being whole and healthy as a young person. Dads need to be the steady anchor there. So understanding the art of influence. And really that's where the tipping point occurs, where you move from directive behavior to more supportive behavior, hopefully, if you've done the work well. And you're guiding your teenager in a whole different way. And ultimately, then that leads to the Q4 stage, and that is being the faithful friend to your young adult child. And I call that stage the stage of friendship. And that's ultimately the reward where things pay off for dads who have done the hard work. And that's the stage that I'm in with my kids. It's deeply rewarding. It's fun to see them start their first jobs, have their first kids, adulting, and then just being there to support them, hopefully for advice and counsel. But my authority in their lives has shifted. I'm no longer the authority in their life, but I am their advocate. And that's an important role to play. So those are the four stages.
Yeah, love that. I mean, incredibly detailed. As you're speaking them, I'm remembering raising my boys, going, yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah, that seems to kind of fit. So, of these four stages, you mentioned, you wish you would have known what you know
Mm-hmm.
then, what you know now.
Mm-hmm.
Was there any one particular stage where you personally sort of had more of a maybe more difficulty, more of a problem looking back, sort of doing what you feel like you needed to do during that stage?
Yeah, honestly, I think it would probably be the first stage, the Q1 stage, the 0 through 6. Um, I think if dads do really good work, then engage highly with their kids, there's a lot of precedents that are being set in those early years. And again, most of that has to do with their response to your leadership. How are they going to respond to your leadership? And what you do in those years uh, greatly affects what happens in the other years. So I really say, man, the most important phase to me is in those early years. Early foundations matter, period. And so be engaged, do the work you're supposed to do in 0 through 6, and then you'll find that the work in the other phases is much more different, maybe even a little bit easier. So I would say that that first stage was probably the hardest challenge. It's dealing with those terrible 2s and 3s. It's teaching your kids in an early way right from wrong, and making sure they understand your role in their life. That 7 to 12 window was the most fun for me personally. And I think part of that was because of really establishing leadership in those early years. We had such a great time. And then by the time my kids in particular, certainly wasn't perfect and there were challenges, but my kids as teenagers were enjoyable. They were fun to be around. We still experienced the emotional distancing where friends became more important than parents. And, it was a totally different kind of leadership in their life, but they went through those normal teenage struggles. But the waters get rough, but you're the anchor, and you've got to be secure and steady as they go through the ups and downs of those teenage years. But yeah, I would say that that early stage, Rory, was probably the most challenging and really the most important. And by the way, I want to say this to dads too. I don't know if you've heard this before, Rory, but 90% of the time a father will spend with his child will occur before the age of 13. 90% of the time he will spend with them in their entire life will occur before the age of 13. That's really hard to imagine, but that's a true statistic because things change, of course. You don't see your kids as much.
Right.
You don't have presence in the same room with them, the same house with them after they're out of the home. So, man, plug in now and be present now while you have that opportunity.
Right. Yeah. Those of us who are empty nesters know how tough that is. So
It is. It
it's
is.
awful. For sure. And then you start thinking about that, going, wow, most of my time is over. And now it's sort of like you're the consultant. You come in when they need you. That's pretty much it.
That's pretty much it. It's a harsh reality.
Yeah.
And I try to prep dads in the book for that very reality when I talk about Q4, but that letting go is difficult. I certainly went through an emotional an emotional time when my daughter left the house, and that was the last one to leave. The empty house, the quiet house, the empty bedrooms. When you walk past it, boy, it's a different time. So, all of us looking back, and you would say this to younger dads, is man, you've got to count the years as precious because they go by so quickly.
Right. So we want to make the most of them, obviously.
Yes.
Do you find that most men are having the same issues? I mean, I know you deal with a lot of men. You've got building a community and
Mm-hmm.
awareness around the book and everything else. So,
Mm-hmm.
are you finding that I want to say most men, not all of us, of course. Everybody's a little bit different, but are you finding that by and large men seem to be in the same area where that first quadrant seems to be like where they really need to dig in, and then what happens if they don't?
Yeah. Well, of course, the impact it can be detrimental if and destructive if they don't engage, and many of that, much of that becomes manifest in those later years. If you don't do the work in the early years, then you experience trouble in particularly the teenage years, where there's rebellion, withdrawal, distancing, that kind of thing. But the short answer to your question is yes. Most dads I find are dealing with the same struggles. And I would say that there are really two categories of those struggles. First of all, is the struggle of just time. They're just busy. If you think about the years when you need to plug in most with your kids, the 0 to 6, Q1 and Q2, those are the career building phases for most men. It's when they're pouring into their work or need to pour into their work the most. So there are men that are dealing with the challenge of time. And so I talk quite a bit about that and how to navigate that in the book, how you've got to be sure and never, ever compromise the moments where your kids need you there the most, being there for small and big moments, but being able to read when you just can't compromise and you've got to sacrifice for the sake of your kids and be there and be present. We all know that we can't spend every moment with our kids like they would want. We're not called to entertain our kids, be the primary entertainer of our kids, but we do have to be there. We have to have presence. So I see that dads are struggling with that. I don't, most dads I know love their kids. Almost every dad I know love their kids. The question is not whether they will love them. The question is whether they will love them intentionally. Will they love them with purpose and have a long range goal in mind in that love? So that leads to the second category of what I think dads struggle with, and that is wounds from their past. Whether you were raised in a good home or a home that was rather chaotic and destructive, like mine, we all bring into fatherhood certain flaws, certain dysfunctions. We have a tendency to make bad choices. We have egos. We have ways of self medicating that can be addictive. We have ways of isolating ourselves and withdrawing ourselves from others. We have perfectionistic tendencies. These kinds of things we bring into fatherhood. And so, one of the big challenges of my book is self awareness. there's almost nothing more important than being a self-aware man, being a self-aware father, and understanding the dynamics of my past and how those affect my present tense fatherhood, the wounds that possibly I carry. Am I leading my kids from wisdom or wounds? And I challenge dads to understand potentially what flaws they have, what strengths they have, of course, but what are their weaknesses, and what are the coping mechanisms that they've had in their lives that they bring into fatherhood that can spill over into their children and cause harm to them. So some dads live in more self-awareness than others. There are dads who are passing down dysfunction to their kids and they're not even aware of it. There's not even an awareness that they need to be self-aware. And so I challenge dads to really think about, okay, who are you? Because everything we do flows from who we are. And be aware of what you bring into fatherhood and how that could be helping or harming your child. So those are the two areas: time, and then just dealing with the patterns of their lives, and seeking to lead from purpose instead of patterns that they've inherited.
Got it. I personally have had an incredibly rough childhood, that I got over, and it's sort of helped. It's one of the reasons behind me doing the show, in the
Yeah.
first place. So maybe it takes one to know one. I don't know, but
Yep.
I'm sitting here listening to everything you're saying. I'm hearing words like chaotic and things like that. I'm wondering if was it some of the uneasiness? We'll just be polite about it that way in your own childhood that kind of led you to want to put this book together and this
Oh,
plan together in the first place?
absolutely, absolutely. So yes, I grew up in an alcoholic home. My parents were working class individuals. I have memories of my parents showing up at my ninth grade baseball game drunk and feeling shame behind that. People noticing that they were drunk, them sitting in the stands, and I'm standing in center field watching this happen. And so you can imagine the shame I felt. Almost broke down in tears. I remember at a young age, 8, 9 years old, looking through the bedroom door into the kitchen dining room and seeing my mother throw coffee in my father's face and him pinning her head to the table, CPS coming over, take us away. We had to spend nights in other people's homes. So there was a lot of that growing up. Now, again, I want to say that God has done a great work of healing in my parents, with my parents. So I'm not seeking to dishonor them, but I just want to be honest with dads about my experience. And, you said that you came from a chaotic experience as well. And I didn't really come to realize the impact of the pain of my past, because, we tend to bury it, don't we? Particularly as young men, and we're okay, right? But about 35 years old, I came to understand that it was impacting my marriage, my fatherhood. And I was sitting at the kitchen table with my 5-year-old son in my lap, and I was just greatly disappointed where my life was. For me, the way that the wounds of my childhood played out was I felt shame about who I was, and that led to perfectionistic tendencies in me. So I was a good student and had to make all A's. And I was the first one to graduate from high school in my family and then go on to college. And so achievement was a big deal to me. And perfectionism, ideas of success, misguided ideas of success, were a part of my life. And when I didn't achieve that, when things weren't perfect, I felt like a loser. And that was the loop that I was in that I couldn't break on my own. But I was sitting there at the kitchen table with my son in my lap, and I was disappointed in my life and where I was, my marriage, my career. And at the same time, I felt this amazing flood of emotion for my son. I began weeping right there at the kitchen table, holding my son, weeping uncontrollably. I had no idea where that was coming from. So I realized, and I tell this story in the book, I realized that, man, I need some help. Something's going on. I need some help. So for the first time, I sat in front of a counselor at 35 years old and began unpacking the experiences of my past with that counselor. It's work I'm still doing today, to be honest. stuff I deal with today that I'm certainly more aware of and have had a sense of power over. But that's how it impacted me. And I remember that counselor saying to me, Rory, I said, I told him about my experience with my son and just weeping uncontrollably. I said, I don't know why I did that. And he looked at me like puzzled. He said, You don't know why you did that? And I shook my head, no. He said, It's because you were giving your son something you never had. And that should have been a very simple connection for me, but it landed really hard in the moment. And I realized, yes, having grown up in a home where I never heard the words "I love you" from my parents, where I never had a memory of me sitting on my dad's lap, had affected me. There are men listening who've had worse experiences than you and I, who are out there. There are men listening who have not had those kinds of experiences at all. But what I'm trying to say is that whether you were wounded or not in your upbringing, you bring with you into fatherhood dynamics that affect the kind of parent you are to your kids. My challenge is to be aware of those dynamics and to face them, admit them. And I say, the most harmful thing that we can do to our children is be an unhealed parent. Our healing becomes our kids' inheritance. We don't want to pass down to our children what was passed down to us.
Wow. I appreciate you sharing that. That makes sense because the whole time I've been sitting here listening to this, I'm like, I wonder why you wrote this book. So let me put a little bit more of a fine point on it then. And again, I appreciate you sharing everything that kind of went into it. In writing this book, what is it that you really and truly hope to accomplish with the people who take the time, read it, enact it, and really utilize the steps and the tools? What is it you're hoping to accomplish with this?
Yeah, my biggest hope is that fathers will be a blessing to their kids, that dads will be celebrated, that in the book they will feel equipped. Okay, I've got some working knowledge that I practical, actionable knowledge that I can put to use in my fatherhood. That they would be equipped, that they would feel empowered. We live in a culture that tends to dismiss fatherhood. I don't know why that's so. There's been talk in recent years about toxic masculinity. I address that in the book. The role of loving, strong men in our culture and in children's lives is so important. So I want men to feel empowered. And finally, I want them to be encouraged. I want their hearts to be encouraged that they can do this, that they can run this race, that they can heal from their past, and they can move forward. The bottom line outcome is hoping that we have a generation of men who do fatherhood differently, who then in turn see a different generation of children. Because our culture, we look close to our culture, we can see the detriment of what's going on with our kids. And kids need help. They need hope. They need strong, loving men in their lives. And so I just want to see dads make a difference in their kids' lives in a way where they feel like they've got some knowledge and some empowerment to do that.
Love that. Love that. All right. Thank you for sharing that too. Now, the book itself comes out later on
Mm-hmm.
this year, but you are taking pre-orders and you've got something going on between like now and Father's Day. This is going to come out a couple weeks before Father's Day, this episode. So tell everybody a little bit about what's going on, why they should go pre-order this book instead of waiting for it to come out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The shameless commercial time.
Absolutely. Hey, we got to have a little of that
No, I
here.
appreciate it. I am proud of the book, and
Yeah.
it took me about 4 years to write. So it's research based, it's scripture based, and it's tested in the trenches of my own fatherhood. So it's based upon experiences I've had as a pastor. So yes, it's coming out later this year. Actually, I think it's going to be January. It'd be early January of 2027 when it will arrive in bookstores. But pre-orders are available. And if your listeners will pre-order before this Father's Day, June 21st, they'll receive 3 benefits from that. If they will sign up to be notified when pre-orders are available, should be anytime now. And certainly by the time this broadcast airs, it should be available. If they pre-order the book, they will receive a free signed print copy of the book. I will sign it to whomever they wish me to sign it to, if they want to give it as a gift, and I will put it in the mail and mail it to whoever they assign the book to. So they'll receive a free signed print copy of the book. They'll receive also an advanced ebook version of the book. And if they do all this before Father's Day, they'll be entered into a chance to win a gift card, $100 gift card to their favorite father-child activity. They name it, we send it to them, and it's a chance for them to maybe get $100 to spend some time with their kids.
That's awesome. That's a very big deal, actually, what
Yeah,
you're putting out there. So
yeah,
we do promotions on our shows all the time, and that's a good one. So
yeah,
all right, folks, you heard them. Get out there and pre-order this book. All right, before Father's Day. It's not going to take you long, and I know all of you know when Father's Day is, so don't give me any of that grief. Just get out there, take care of it. All right. And then, I do have another question for you before we, completely, wrap this up. But before we get there, let everybody know what's the best way to reach you. How can they find out more about you, about your book, about your movement, your community, everything else. Give them all that stuff, and then
yeah.
then we'll come back.
Great. So they can go to our website, fatherfriend.net, to find the book, to find my blog, to find links to the podcast I do. I do a weekly podcast as well. And then any other kinds of resources that I have. They're on the website, fatherfriend.net. They can follow on social media at Thinking Dads. So I'm challenging men to be strategic, to be thoughtful, to be intentional. So my social media handle is at Thinking Dads. They can contact me there. And I would love for your listeners just to send me an email. And they can do that by sending me an email at hello@fatherfriend.net. I get those emails personally. I respond to them personally. I'd love to hear from listeners if they have a question, if there's something that I can help them with.
I love that. All right. Appreciate all that. And what's the name of the podcast?
Name of the podcast is the Father Friend Podcast.
The Father Friend Podcast. All
Yeah,
right. There we
it's
go.
on Spotify and Apple. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Very good. Audio only right now?
Audio, no, I actually have it on YouTube as well. I
Okay.
forgot to mention that. I just
There
started
we go.
doing a video podcast as well. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. All right. Well, congratulations on all that. We'll definitely
Thank you.
get that into the show notes and, let everybody know. Dr. Ayers, I want to thank you, of course, for being on. But as we're wrapping this up, I just want to make sure that there isn't anything is there anything I forgot to ask you? Is there anything that maybe we talked about you want to go back and double down on a little bit? Or maybe just one last nugget, piece of advice, that type of thing for the fathers and husbands that are listening to this show and listen to it all the time? I'm going to let you kind of wrap for the last minute or two and
Yeah.
deliver any of those things that you'd like.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I don't want to primarily talk about the book, but the book contains so much of what I'm seeking to offer dads. I did fail to mention that the book starts with providing a clear purpose of fatherhood and defining what father friend means. Because people hear that, and I think maybe they turn their heads and say, "Okay, I need some help on what that means." Um, so I define what a father friend is, and I set that purpose before men. I talk about the benefits of purpose and how that can make a difference in our lives as men. I talk about the challenge of drift, how we can drift so easily in our lives. And then all of a sudden the years are gone and our kids are out of the house. So I'm hoping to prevent regrets in fatherhood by just helping men with that. And then the second half of the book, I provide the model in the book, the 4-stage model in part 1. And then in part 2, I talk about 7 essential competencies of fatherhood. And there I mentioned self-awareness, go into self-awareness. I talk about what leadership really looks like from a dad to their kids, the idea of servant authority. I talk about integrity and how important it is to be a man of integrity, just personally for our own selves, but also the power of that in the lives of our kids. I go into detail about discipline. What does effective, loving discipline look like at any age? These are principles that cut across every stage. I talk about the virtue of courage, how we have raised a generation of children that are not very resilient. and how we need to stop rescuing our kids and how we need to challenge them to overcome fear and challenges in their lives. And there are certain specific things that we can do as a dad to build courage and the virtue of courage in our children. And then I talk about affection, how important it is for fathers to give their children affection and what that looks like. It builds that unshakable sense of self-worth that kids need, that helps them to be the people that God has made them to be. And then I talk about the idea of sacrifice, women and children first, and how we've lost the chivalry and the sacrifice that should accompany manhood and fatherhood, where men will put their family first. We need more of that. It used to be a trait that was common with men, and we need more of that. That's the chapter I talk about toxic masculinity compared to authentic masculinity. What does it really mean to be a man? And then I end the book talking about the fatherhood of God and telling more of my story, my upbringing, how I found healing, and how we find in a heavenly father not just a model for good fatherhood, he is our father and friend. So we understand what it looks like, but even more than that, God, through his presence in our lives, his personal presence in our lives, also provides the power, the strength that we need. And there's a power that we can lean upon, right? And he does that for us when we engage personally, relationally with our loving Father in heaven. So that's the book. I just wanted to outline that for you. And that's what I'm seeking to offer. My blog, the resources there. And I just want to encourage fathers. I think dads get enough guilt. They feel guilt. The dads I know feel like they want to do more. They want to be more. They're wondering if they're falling short. And I just want to say, hey, keep going. Nobody's going to do it perfectly. If you can just be there faithfully and then do the best you can, get equipped. Dads will get equipped in business. They'll get equipped in leadership. They'll go to school. They'll get training, and then they'll wing it when it comes to fatherhood. So I'm calling them to something more than that, than just drifting, just making it up as they go, because fatherhood is too important to guess your way through. And that's my challenge.
Love it. Love it. All right. Thank you for wrapping us up like that. I mean, I think that says it all. So,
Thank you,
so,
Rory.
all right. Well, author of Father Friend, How Intentional Dads Lean In, Lead Well, and Love Big, coming soon, and pre-orders now. Dr. Mike Ayers. Dr. Ayers, thank you for being on today, for sharing everything you did, and for just leading by example, with so many of these men that are out there, and for giving them the tools to try and follow in your footsteps. Appreciate you very much, and appreciate you being on.
Thank you, Rory. Appreciate you and your questions. And I've been on a lot of podcasts. I appreciate you getting it. Some interviews I have kind of, it's a deer in the headlights, but I feel like we've got a common language here. We want to encourage men. We want to encourage dads, and I know that's what you're about too. So thank you.
Amen. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
All right, gentlemen, this has been another fantastic episode of the Power of Man podcast. The reason that we have these very powerful men on here with these powerful messages is because we are united in hoping that you find your power so that you can become a better protector, better provider, and a better leader tomorrow than you are today. So you can become a better father, a better husband, a better man tomorrow than you are today. And the reason we want that for you is because you have value. It's because you matter. And it's because you're worth it. And at some point, you just have to believe it. Until next time.